Now, happy birthday, America, and happy birthday, Donald Trump. Today kicks off weeks of celebrations in the run-up to the 250th anniversary of US independence, and today itself is the president's 80th birthday. Now, the first of the big set-piece spectacles to honour the occasion is, to put it politely, rather unorthodox, and in the eyes of many Americans, unpresidential as well. Donald Trump is hosting a cage fight on the White House lawn, a UFC mixed martial arts extravaganza where fighters sealed inside a wire mesh octagon will try to punch and kick each other into submission. Well, let's talk about this then with Ellen Kountz. She's with me here in the studio. She's the Dean of the Finance Department at INSEEC Business School here in Paris. She's also the author of Portraits of Vice Presidents, the incredible story of Kamala Harris. Hello to you.
Hi, thanks for your invitation.
Thank you for speaking to us. We appreciate it. First of all, are you a fan then of wrestling and UFC?
Not at all, but that's it. Nevertheless, it remains very American. So the choice of sports is not where I have beef. It's more the fact that it's not classy or respectable, but nor is the country, the United States, right now.
Under this particular US president.
Indeed.
Why do you think, then, you say this isn't a particularly classy sport, it's certainly, it's brash, it's gaudy. Why has Donald Trump decided to have one of these fights on the White House lawn? What do you think his goal is?
I think he wants to reinforce the idea that, he has a lot of narcissism. So it's very much for his own person, his own personal choices. I also think that it's important for him to not do things in traditional ways or ways that would be more accepted by the general public. The general public accepts what's happening yesterday and today up at about 16%. So it's a very low percentage. I also think that the fact that it's trashy and loud, it's overdone, is also a slow walk into autocracy. We're seeing that, where's the opposition? At some point, we have to wonder, it's not just about Donald Trump himself. Where's the opposition? Why do we have such difficulty in our democratic system to have checks and balances that are effective? Why is it so difficult, for example, to enforce the emoluments clause of the Constitution and such brazen self-dealing? Because your question was, well, what about, why UFC? Donald Trump became a shareholder of UFC in March and then signed the agreements for this spectacle a few days later.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So he became a shareholder in the parent company of UFC.
Yes.
Is that a conflict of interest to have the president hosting this sort of spectacular, gaudy event on the White House lawn while he stands to profit from any money it makes?
It's a massive conflict of interest, but I think we've become almost numb to this massive grift, which is Trump 2.0, the second Trump agenda. Even when we see him walking around with that white USA hat, that's sold on his website, his personal website. It's something that's merch. It's merch that's available for sale. So when it's UFC branded and then there are other brands that come in on the White House lawn, that is federal property. So we have a history of public-private partnerships, but there's a real conflict when there's payment by the federal government, which means taxpayer dollars, and on the other side, there's all the profit is privatized. It's a real problem.
Okay, so we have the UFC, which I think the images will be quite extraordinary when we see them later on today. But Trump, of course, hasn't just been talking about this a lot recently. He's thinking about, we think, his legacy. He wants to build the ballroom. We've talked plenty about an arch potentially as well, the Kennedy Center, the renaming of it, the Trump Kennedy Center. Is this all about the fact that you think Trump's term is coming to an end and he wants to think about how he's going to be remembered by Americans now?
Unfortunately, I think it's more pernicious than that. I think it's a problem of weakening the Constitution, weakening the democratic institutions, and trying to browbeat the population into accepting an autocracy.
When you say an autocracy, in what sense would you say that Washington's heading that way?
Well, for example, he has done things to the White House, once again, a public property. It's literally called the People's House, without authorization. So, and not
ballroom, what we're seeing today, the
the
UFC.
South Lawn, the Rose Garden, really without any support. And you know what's incredible is that he has the Congress, huh? He has the Senate and the House. And if these things had gone through normal channels, he probably would have obtained them through normal channels. But he doesn't want to attain them through normal channels. He wants to attain them by executive order, by decree, or just ignoring the law. So this is the famous the absence of rule of law. So it's not just the White House, it's also Washington, D.C. with the reflecting pool. Last night, the athletes were received at the Lincoln Memorial, you know, for constitutionalists and other Americans for whom it's really important, the respect of the Constitution and our laws and norms. It's a real problem. And lastly, I'd say in the images you were just showing, see where it says there, Freedom 250. There's confusion because there's been a project called America 250 for about 10 years. It's been bipartisan. It's an institution. It's run by the government. But Freedom 250 is totally privatized. It's just his birthday.
It is just his birthday. He's turning 80. Final thoughts for you. We talked so much about Joe Biden's age when he was in office. Trump was the oldest president to be sworn in. How do you think he's doing? You know, as he ages, he seems sometimes to be falling asleep in meetings.
He's very much falling asleep, and it makes me think of Sleepy Joe. You know, I remember when Kamala Harris was the nominee for those 107 days, sometimes journalists would say, but you were there, ma'am, and you saw, you heard. Why didn't you do or say anything? I can't wait for them to ask this cabinet what they were doing. What is their responsibility? Sometimes Donald Trump disappears between 4, 5, 6 days. We think he's probably at Walter Reed Hospital, but we don't have the level of information. You know, they want to say that they're transparent, but there's so much we just don't know.
All right. It's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much, Ellen Kountz, talking to us there on the programme.